Hi, I'm Teresa Elling from Peaceful Home. Welcome to my channel, which is brand new. This is my third video. And for those of you that have been a part of my life, either with organizing, parenting classes, you know that I've considered starting a blog or YouTube channel, and the coronavirus has kind of forced me into it. This is my way of answering a lot of the questions that I'm getting and to be able to put it out there so that hopefully this will be helpful to you and to some other parents that you know. First two videos I did were on how to shelter in place with your family and survive. And the second one was on instituting a quiet time in your home, which is so beneficial for children. I encourage you to take a look at those videos. Today, we're going to talk about 6 tips for schooling at home during COVID-19. So the first one is to schedule your days. It's really important to have a balance between free time and structured time, and you need both. Our kids have to have free time to be creative, to problem solve, to be innovative, to make decisions. So important. But if we have too much free time, then they can have something that I'm sure you've heard of, decision fatigue, where they can't make a decision, they don't know what to do. And if you've ever seen your kids during free time wander around kind of like, I'm bored, I don't know what to do, they can't make a decision. Another problem with that is just discontentment, where if you're saying, we're going to have structured time right now and we're all going to play a board game, and your child's like, well, I don't want to do that. And somehow it's all based on what they want or don't want, which is a pretty selfish attitude, but it does really breed a discontentment that where they always want to be doing what they want to be doing. And so it's very important to have a balance of those things and have a structured time where we say, this is our outside time. Well, I don't feel like going outside. I understand that, but this is our outside time. After lunch, we're having quiet time. Well, I don't feel like it today. Doesn't matter, this is what's on the schedule. So for the most part, I'm structured in that I like a plan, I like things written out, but once it's written out, I was kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of homeschooling mom, because I would get bored, honestly. And so I did notice that structure was important enough for my kids that I needed to keep certain things in place. But whenever we did have free time, I loved it because then we could do whatever we wanted. And sometimes I would switch it up to where, let's say in the morning, we're going to have free time and we're going to do these projects and we'll do our school after lunch. And so you can change it up. Do what works for you and do what works for your kids. See what seems to work well with their personalities. But try to balance out your structured time with their free time. One of the things that we did when our youngest was a baby, so 6 children, and I was probably homeschooling the first 3 at that point, 3 or 4, and then the other 2 were baby and toddler. And one of the things I did, this was a season of about 2 years where this was extremely helpful. I had a very detailed schedule of what we were doing at different times of day. And so that might mean that I'm working with Caleb on reading while Rachel is playing with Abby, and just the 2 of them are having playtime together. And so we would schedule out what everyone was doing at various times and then where mom was supposed to be. Am I working with the kid on school? Am I taking care of little ones while the older ones are working on their independent work? But we scheduled it out so that the kids always had something to do. And similarly to quiet time, if you have more than 3 children, this can be really helpful where you assign 2 siblings to have a half hour of quiet playtime together. It's not quiet time, so you want to give it a different feel and a different name, but they can have a playtime together without the other sibling, which changes the dynamic. So you can just have so many ways of changing it up. You know, dad is working with one kid on science while grandma is helping another kid with math, and then you switch or whatever it is. Make the schedule work for you. Number 2, take advantage of learning opportunities. Do not put too much pressure on yourself right now during the shelter-in-place mandate. It's important that you are realizing that public schools have their own way of doing things for a classroom of a lot of kids. And that's not the case when you have a few kids at home, or maybe even one. but even as little as 10, that's not the size of a full classroom. And so you have the option to school very differently and have just different opportunities that a public school teacher wouldn't have. So take advantage of this. Take advantage of your child's natural way of learning. So recently, Kevin and I watched the movie Everest. This is a movie about a tragedy that happened in 1996. I'm sure most of you have heard of that, where there was a huge blizzard and the expeditions that were up on Everest were all in crisis, and many people barely escaped with their lives. A lot of people died, and the movie was fascinating to me. I hate being cold, which is why maybe I have some weird fascination with things like Antarctica and Everest, but I really enjoyed the movie. After watching it, one thing I noticed they kept talking about was 8M, and I thought, what is 8M? So I looked it up, and it's 8,000 meters. It's the 14 mountains that are over 8,000 meters. They all happen to be in Asia. And that's kind of like, I guess, a mountain climber's dream is to hit all 14 of them. But I had never even heard of that before. So I looked that up, and then I had other questions like, what's the thing with the oxygen on Everest? Why do some people use it, some people don't? What are the death rates on Everest? What kind of preparation does it take? What is the cost for this? I was just naturally curious. No one had to make me study this. There was no test afterwards. I just went with my own curiosity and got the information I needed. You can't keep a child from learning. Our kids are curious about so many things. And I remember a homeschool mom years ago saying, don't tell your kids, put down the frog and get in here to do your science lesson. You miss the whole point. The frog is the science lesson. Take the things that are naturally happening in your home, the things that your kids are curious about, and go off of those. Those are great learning opportunities. In the homeschool arena, we call those unit studies, where you can take one topic and dive into so many aspects of that topic. It's amazing. There's a curriculum called 5 in a Row that I really enjoyed, and they have it from a preschool level, the basic 5 in a Row, and then they have a pre and they have one for older kids. But take a book like Make Way for Ducklings. You read the book with your kids, and you can do this naturally. You don't even need their curriculum, but they pull things out of the book. You learn all about ducks. You learn about Boston, which is where it takes place. Maybe you'll make some food from the city of Boston that they're famous for. Maybe you look at the role of policemen, because a policeman's a figure in the book. It's just a natural way at looking at things in front of you and being able to go deeper in your areas of study. And kids do this naturally by asking questions all the time. So again, take advantage on the things that your kids are curious about right now. Answer their questions honestly, show them how to go online and dive in deeper. It's really amazing, and you'll see your kids come alive with some more interest in schoolwork. Number 3, remember your job as a discipler. I feel like this is your primary job as a parent. It's to disciple your children, to teach them the ways of God, to show them how to cultivate their own relationship with the Lord, how to repent, how to connect with Him, how to know the Father's love, and that there's nothing they could do to ever lose that or to ever have their Father distance Himself from them. Just so many things you can teach your children. And of course, this is ongoing, not just having to do with school, but sometimes we get so caught up in the academics that we forget the whole of our role. To be able to teach our children life skills, emotional health, how to connect with people and have healthy relationships. The whole idea of having your kids at home right now and being able to work on life skills is amazing. Honestly, if you just said, we're not doing any school curriculum, we're going to learn life skills. If you started asking your kids, what do you want to learn about? And made a list, even looked up some YouTube videos, how to do X, Y, and Z, and let your kids start doing the things that they want to do. You also can have, a little challenge like having them learn to do different chores that they eventually could get paid for if they do them well. For a while, my kids, one of the channels they were always allowed to watch during free time was Food Network, because I'm smart. And I figure if my kids learn to cook and they take an interest in that, that's going to help me out and I don't have to cook as much. But it was so great to have them find out, wow, where does cinnamon come from? Where does this ingredient come from? What are the common flavors in Asian cooking? And again, even with something like that, you can go so much deeper into studying just out of curiosity. One thing that we do often with children, and this is typical in the school setting because a teacher can only manage so much. And to all of you teachers out there, you guys are amazing. I don't know how you do your jobs so well because I just had 6 and that was hard. So I can't imagine what you guys go through. There are so many opportunities for your kids to learn about things that they are interested in. One of the problems that we have sometimes, and again, this is because in a public school, it's so difficult with a large group of children to be able to, you can't just teach what each child is interested in. There's no way you could possibly do that. But this is the advantage of right now, in this season when you have your kids home. Go ahead and do that. What we often do is we say, Mom, I want to learn to bake a cheesecake. Awesome. Here is the Encyclopedia of Baking by Martha Stewart. So here's the overview of the whole book. We're going to go through chapter 1, how to bake bread. And your kid's like, I just want to bake cheesecake. I know, but this is going to explain important concepts that you need to know. And then number 2, how to do pie crust. Well, I don't want to make a pie crust. I want to make a cheesecake. And you're halfway through the book and your kid's bored and they're done and they're not interested. Now at that point, you might say, now I'm going to make you learn this. And I'm going to test you every Friday, a chapter test on how to bake cookies. And your child has no interest in doing it, but they know they have to memorize the material, they have to take the test, but the life is gone, the passion is gone, the curiosity is gone. Why can't we go straight to chapter 12 and say, here's how you bake cheesecakes? And then as they're doing that, they might go, wow, we could make a raspberry topping for the cheesecake. Mom, could we make jam too? What if we made raspberry jam? And then that can evolve and move out to other things. But often we cut off the natural curiosity by forcing our child in a direction they're not wanting to go. And please don't misunderstand me. I am not for non-coercive parenting. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever, make your children. We can't actually make our children do anything, can we? That's not our job to control our children. But we are in charge of disciplining them and discipling them and showing them on the path that they should go. So just remember your job as a discipler and model to your children how to live life, how to connect with one another, how to do practical things. One way I will tell you that's a really simple way to model healthy relationships is with board games. Now, if you take a couple of kids and send them in their own room to play a board game, I don't know about your family, but that just would have ended up in a fight, an argument. And that's the way it is for most kids because they do not know how to handle that skill. And it's not just one skill of playing a board game. It's you're thinking, you're with a partner, you're playing a game against each other, you want to win, and you've got to manage all that emotion of when you don't agree on something. This is why we have referees, even in pro sports, because we have disagreements. And our kids don't know how to handle those unless we teach them how, unless we model that. So it's very important that you regularly play board games with your children. Model being a humble winner and a gracious loser and show them what that looks like. One of the things that we did in our family is whoever won cleaned up the game. For one thing, that brings some humility. It brings an opportunity to serve. And then even all of the rest of the family that lost would pitch in and help clean up too. And that was just a really simple way of showing correct attitudes in playing a game. So take advantage of this opportunity to teach your children so much more than academics. Number 5, read out loud. I mentioned this in the other video, and I can't stress enough how important this is and the benefits of reading out loud to your children, no matter what their age. Some of the advantages is you can read a book far above your child's reading level. So if they have a 5th grade reading level, you can read them a book that's an 8th grade reading level, or even a 12th grade reading level, depending on the content. And what this does is it increases their vocabulary. It teaches them about proper sentence structure and grammar. Our children are used to hearing TV dialogue, phone conversations, what is on video, what is on TV, and those are rarely complete sentences. That is usually conversational English, and it's a lot of like just shortcuts in the way that we do conversational. It's not complete sentences. And so a lot of times when our children go to write, they can't write in complete sentences because of what they're used to hearing. So this is a really important way to get them proper sentence structure by having them read as much as they can, but also listening when you read aloud. The other thing that's great is that kids can be doing something while you're reading. I'll put on an Audible book while I'm driving, while I'm folding laundry, while I'm cleaning my bathroom, to listen to a book on audio. And our kids, it's very important often for them to have their hands busy. They can actually listen better. I had a mom once that said, "You don't know my kids. I've got active boys, and if I don't sit them down and make them pay attention, they will not be able to retain what I'm saying." And I had suggested that she let them play with Legos while she read aloud. And she just said, "That won't work, I guarantee it." So I asked her just to give it a try. A week later, she said she was shocked because they were reading through a book and she could see that her son was not paying attention. He was madly building his Lego building. And at the end of the chapter, her son looked up and said, "Mom, are you going to keep reading? What happens to so-and-so?" And she could not believe that he actually was listening and retained the information. And so that was enough to convince her. Things like building blocks, Play-Doh, even crocheting or knitting, painting, drawing, those kinds of things. No other screens, no talking, but just keeping the hands busy actually opens their ears to hear you better. So keep those things in mind with reading out loud. There's a book that I absolutely love called The Education of Little Tree. I encourage you to grab it at your local library. It's about a boy who is raised with grandparents who take him to the library every week and they read books. Like, that is his education. And it's amazing. It's just a beautifully written book and so inspiring to help you understand the type of education you could give your children simply by reading out loud. Now, the other benefit to reading out loud, you can build a fire, you can snuggle in bed, you can have hot cocoa and sit around on the couch together while you're reading. So that's just another opportunity to connect as a family. So great idea. Try that soon. Number 5, help your children with their social interaction. Some of the things I've been hearing is my kid's fine. Like, they don't have any questions about COVID. They're just doing great. They just do their own thing and I don't worry about them. I have other parents that are saying, my kids are driving me crazy. You know, little Billy is asking me questions every 5 minutes and following me around the house, and I'm going to lose my mind. So with our quiet kids, we want to draw them out. They are thinking about things. They have opinions. They have emotions. They have concerns. Draw them out. Find out what your kids are thinking and get them to talk about that. It's also important that you're willing to pause and wait in silence for children like that. So let's say that you are doing the dinner question. You have a dinner question. Everyone's going around the circle and everyone's going to have a chance to answer. And you get to little Susie, who's very quiet and shy and doesn't say a whole lot. And you say, "Well, Susie, what would you do if you were given $1 million?" And she says, "I don't know." And so you kind of wait and you go, "Okay, we'll move on." sit in silence for as long as it takes. I've seen this happen with my own kids, with other parents, with their children. If you are willing to wait, those children will speak up. Often they are not willing to speak out quickly, and they're not willing to interrupt or force their way. So if there's any resistance, they'll just shrink back. So you have to be willing to have some dead air space and teach your other family members to sit quietly and wait. Now, the other side of the spectrum. If you have a child who's a talker, and I had a couple of those, they process through talking, they have a lot to say, they have a lot of opinions, and they have a lot of questions. So with kids like this, there are a few things you can do that can help. One thing is to have a parent notebook. And this actually works for both types of kids and everybody in between. This works well also if your child has maybe a more sensitive question, maybe they have a question about sex that they're afraid to ask you. You have a special notebook that at any time they can get it, write their question, and leave it on your pillow. And you write your response and you leave it on their pillow. And that's a way that they can just ask something that they might not want to watch you ask you face to face. So another thing that's great about the notebook is, let's say during this sheltering time, you've got a kid that's asking you questions all day long. You can say, you need to write them down in the notebook this morning. We're going to work on school, but if you have any questions pop up, write them down in the notebook, or maybe you have a dry erase board and they can write their questions on the board. And then every day, maybe at lunchtime or afternoon tea, which is a great thing to have as well, like your afternoon snack time, make that an event where maybe you sit at a different place. Maybe you have a picnic in the living room, or you sit in your kitchen rather than at the dining room table. But you have a time where you say, okay, now you can ask me anything you want. What did you write on the dry erase board? And that gives them an opportunity to ask all of their questions. But at a point where you're like, I can't have this constant barrage of questions, you can cut them off, not by being impatient, but saying, man, that question is so good. I just need to answer that later. So write it down so you don't forget. We want to be patient and loving because these are kids that are going to change the world. They've got so many thoughts and ideas. And if you can just picture your children, even with their quirks, especially the strong-willed kids, the really quiet kids, the ones that always seem to be getting into trouble, the ones that talk all the time. And imagine what God could do with those characteristics, with His power, and with maturing them. And it's amazing. Get a vision for your child because it will make you want to basically grow those things in the proper direction rather than cutting them off. It'll make you see that there is potential for these qualities and that we can turn these for good. And it just helps you to not squash these things in your children that are irritating to you in the moment. Okay, moving on. Number 6, how to help a struggling learner. And my tip is slow down. Slow yourself down, slow them down. This is really about readiness. So if you're trying to teach your child a concept in math, let's say, and they just aren't getting it, and you go back the next day and they still aren't getting it, it can be so frustrating. And I heard this story years ago about readiness, and I love it. It's about 2 farmers. So there's Farmer Joe and Farmer Ben. And both of these men are so excited. It's been winter, cold, snowy, and they're planning their gardens, they're planning their farming for the coming spring, and they're excited. Well, Farmer Joe, he's like, you know what, this year I'm getting a head start on this. I've got stuff to do. I've got to set up this new corral for my livestock, and I'm going to build a fence. And Farmer Ben needs to build a fence as well. So Farmer Joe says, I'm going to get all my fence posts dug so that I can get this fence up and be ready by the time spring comes. So he goes out every day laboring, pickaxe, just getting through this frozen hard ground. And he works and works day after day, laboring, wearing his body out. And by the first day of spring, he has succeeded and he has dug all of his fence posts. And on that same day, Farmer Ben goes out and the earth is soft, it's ready, and he digs all of his fence posts in one day. So I think you can see the moral of the story. When our children are ready, it's so easy. When they're not, it's like picking through frozen ground. And that is what it will feel like. So if your child has hit a plateau and they're not grasping a concept and you're feeling really stuck, this is where school is so not fun. This is where every day ends in tears and for mom and child, and you just want to give up. And as homeschool moms, literally you want to give up and just say, that's it, I'm done putting my kids in school. Right now, you don't even have the option to give up. You can't send your kids anywhere else. They are home with you. So I know the Lord will help you get through these difficult times. So if your child is struggling with the concept, first thing to realize is they may be taught in a different way than you learned. And this is certainly applicable with math right now. Parents are struggling with a lot of the new math. I learned a way that was really easy and basic, and now they have to go through all these steps. I would say if you can teach your child another method and they're grasping it, do it. And if it all comes down to it and it's not working, pitch the math. They can get caught up. I explained that in the first video. It is not the end of the world that your children don't do math for the next 2 months. I promise you, they can get caught up very easily. So don't let that worry you. So what was he saying? See, my brain just goes off. Now I know what my husband, when he says he has rabbit trails, then you try to get back on track. It's difficult. So just be willing. Don't let the curriculum be your master. If you need to lessen up on even what the school system is asking of you, do that. You are the parent. You get to decide what is best for your children. I have had several parents tell me that during the sheltering in place that they're overwhelmed. Their kids are being given too much work. They have too many Zoom calls. They can't keep up. They're actually more stressed out now than when their kids were in school. And that should not be. And I understand. My husband's a school teacher, and he is feeling the pressure right now from the district to have quality material available for the kids. And that could be that there's too much available, and it can feel overwhelming. You do not have to do everything. Do what fits for your family and for your child during this season. Another common it's kind of a joke in homeschooling that it takes 3 phonics curriculums to teach your child to read. That really is not true, but let me explain where that comes from. You start out working with little Billy, teaching him to read, and you've got your phonics program and you're going through, and he is just picking it up day after day. You're doing so well, and all of a sudden you hit a snag, and he's not picking up the next concept day after day, and he's frustrated and you're frustrated. And you think, oh my goodness, like this curriculum is not working for us. I'm just going to put this down. I'm going to find something else. I'm going to do some research. And you find out about another really good curriculum. So you order that, and a week later, you've got it. And you start with little Billy again, going through, and you're like, okay, this is better. He's picking this up. We're doing really well. And then again, you hit a snag. And you think, oh, this must just be a deficiency in this curriculum. This is not working well for him. We're going to have to find something else. And so you do some research again. And meanwhile, it's summer. So you're like, okay, I guess now I have the whole summer to look at it. By the fall, I've got a new curriculum. And Billy just picks it up, off and running, and he's reading. Ta-da, 3 curriculums. I really think that's all about readiness. At each point where he hit a snag, he was saying, I need a break. I can't retain any more information. And this is the way our brains work. Do you know that? That when you're studying, when you're filling your mind with all this stuff for memory and learning, your mind actually has to be at rest. So it needs sleep, and it needs awake rest. So taking a walk through your neighborhood is being awake, but your brain is resting. And that is actually how you learn and how you form memories. So it's kind of like bodybuilding. If any of you have done, you're forming muscle, you do the workout, but it's at rest that your muscle begins to repair and build. And so you have to have that rest time. So these are ways that we can help a struggling learner just by slowing down a little. It's actually pretty easy. I hope these tips have been helpful. These are just some ideas to restructure the way maybe that you've been doing school. I don't imagine any of you got a manual on how to do this COVID thing and have all your kids at home and teach them yourselves. So we're all kind of just doing the best we can. I just want to encourage you that this can be an amazing time of connecting with your family. If you make that your top priority, to connect with the Lord and connect with your family, it will be amazing and you will not have regrets. Don't make this about making sure your child keeps up with the rest of the students in class, no matter what it takes. You're all going to be miserable. So press in to love one another well.